Hello, Diversity and Design students. Welcome to Module 7. We are at a critical juncture in this course. Last week we completed our overview of the 5 primary areas of design. Now this week we are moving into a new phase of this course where we will link these 5 design disciplines with 8 diversity issues, and they are race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, age, physical characteristics, cognitive and psychological characteristics, and religion. We will be examining how each of these diversity issues affects the design disciplines and in turn how the design disciplines affect these diversity issues. Race is the first diversity issue that we will address. Our attitudes towards race permeate every design discipline. Just think about communication design, from the early advertisements with Aunt Jemima selling pancakes to current sports team branding. Consider products, from the sombrero-wearing donkey statues that are decorating suburban lawns to spinning chrome wheels and grill guards on tricked-out rides. Our architecture has racial consequences. From the segregation at Thomas Jefferson's plantation Monticello to the racial politics of memorial design on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. The history of urban planning reveals that much of the zoning in the U.S. has been based on race, and there's still residue of that in place. And Walter Hood's landscape work from last week shows us how the histories of racial minorities were literally covered up. They were not considered important enough to remember. On the most basic level, this design work reveals rules of racial hierarchy in the age of segregation laws and shows how designers gave powerful form to widely held racist attitudes among white Americans throughout much of our nation's history. As racial minorities have begun to claim more of a place in American society, design has started to change as well. However, all of the design professions need more underrepresented minorities on their teams to more accurately reflect and drive the politics of race in our everyday lives. The materials for this week move between communication design, architecture, and design methods. We'll start with an article about an engraved poster that was first published in 1788 that depicted the conditions on board the Brooks slave ship. I'm sure that some of you are familiar with this image. This poster has become an iconic image of the inhumanity of the slave trade, and certainly it furthered the abolitionists' causes. Then we're going to move to a classic reading, an unedited transcript of the controversial 1968 American Institute of Architects speech by Whitney M. Young, Jr., a civil rights leader, in which he roundly criticizes the architects who are attending the conference. Following that, we're asking you to read a compelling chapter from your Diversity and Design book that compares 2 monuments on the National Mall, the Martin Luther King Memorial and the new National Museum of African American History and Culture. Then, for a change of pace, watch a very short talk by artist Angelica Das, who cataloged every conceivable human skin tone, illustrating that skin color and race are more complex than they might appear at first glance. Her work is quite similar to designer Andrew Kim's work, if you're interested in this sort of thing. Next, we've given you links to Harvard University's Project Implicit tests, which have been running for many years. You can take these tests to see where you are in relation to others regarding hidden racial biases. I was surprised at the results of my tests, and I imagine that you're going to be somewhat surprised at the results of yours as well. And then finally, we've assigned an article with the long title, Racism and Inequality Are Products of Design. They can be redesigned. This article introduces ways to practice design that make racism and inequality obsolete. We think you're going to find this week to be an eye-opening look at how racially charged our designed visual and physical environments can be. Of course, there's the usual quiz and then the discussion questions, and I think the discussion questions this week are particularly rich. If you need a break, check out the Something Interesting category. You might note the little change, and there's a reason for that. Given the controversial nature of many of the topics that we'll be taking on in the next section, the term interesting will work better than the word fun. Also, the invitation to add to this section is still open, so if you have anything that you think is topical and relevant, please send it my way. Okay, now given that we're going to be studying the relationship between race and design this week, pay extra attention to visual communications. Keep in mind that even the simplest, most straightforward messages communicate different things to different people. What messages about race issues are embedded in the visuals and the texts that you see in the media? Which are effective? Which are not? Why? What's the context? Do you think that you would interpret these communication designs differently if you were from a different race? These readings of our design worlds are often overlooked, but if we are to become catalysts of positive change, we need to pay attention. Okay, that's it. Let's have some fun this week, and I hope you celebrate the green. Bye-bye.